Hello, I think I'm live. Hello there and welcome. It is lovely to be here with you all today while I get used to this technology. Hopefully you can hear me okay. And I believe there's also a live chat option if you guys have some things to say, anyone who's watching. And hopefully I'll be able to see that, but let's see what happens. My name is Natalie Roy, and like you watching, hi Stephanie, like you watching, most likely many of you watching or all of you watching are actors and artists, and I'm also an actor. I'm originally from Canada. Hi Toby, nice to see you. And I've now been living in New York for the last 9 years and working as an actor between Canada. Hey Reb, hey Teen, so good to see you all. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you also to Backstage for doing these awesome slates. This is a really awesome thing to have access to each other, to have access to casting director information. It's such a lovely thing while we're all navigating this pandemic. So yay, good to see you guys. Thank you so much for being here. So what I wanted to talk to you all about today, I was talking to the folks at Backstage and they asked if I would be interested in talking to you about self-care for actors. And so I want to talk to you about what I believe self-care to be first and foremost, because I think that self-care is kind of a modern day thing. Hello from Liverpool. Hello from North Carolina. Oh, it's so good to see where everyone is around the world. All right. So what most people think of self-care as, is having bubble baths or going for a walk in nature and those kinds of things. And I do absolutely think that those things can be nurturing and can be considered self-care. But when I think specifically about self-care for actors, I think about the kind of care we have to give ourselves in order to not self-abandon. And what do I mean by that? Let's use the frame of an audition experience. If you walk into an audition, do you have these strong choices that you wanted to make for the sake of the audition? You worked with the character, you did some rehearsals, you know exactly what you want to do, and you walk in the audition room, and all of a sudden something takes over that you're second guessing your choices. You really want the casting director to like you. You want to make the right choice, quote unquote. And so all of a sudden you end up doing like a lukewarm version of what you wanted to do, or you don't fully do your choice, or you kind of wait to be redirected, or you get in your head, or you forget your lines. And that would be an example of self-abandoning. That would be an example of you didn't take care of your artist in that moment, because rather than nurturing the artist and the choices you'd made, you decided to nurture something outside of yourselves. So this is just one example of how we as actors can get into a habit of abandoning ourselves. And there's certainly lots of ways. We abandon ourselves when we are faced with a casting director or an agent, and we think that they want something from us. And then we say, yeah, I guess I'll do that instead of what I had intended. So yeah, the second guessing, the anxiety of that moment, right, Marcia? Like you're just walking in, you're so confident, or sometimes it actually happens in the audition room itself, like before you're walking into the audition room in the waiting room, where you feel so confident in the elevator, and then the elevator door opens, and then you walk in and you see all these people that automatically your mind is sizing up like, well, they're definitely better for the part than me. For whatever reason, it's just your ego is just starting to tell you all the reasons why maybe you don't deserve to be here. Oh, maybe that's a person you saw on TV before. Maybe they have more credits than you, so probably they're going to get the role. And this happens all the time. I actually remember one of the roles that I actually booked, which was on Blindspot for NBC. I walked into the waiting room and I saw this gorgeous woman in the waiting room. And I was telling myself, she's going to get it for sure. She's so much more beautiful than me. She looks so much more smart than me, or whatever the story that you make up about it is. And I actually had to take myself and walk into the restroom and look at the mirror in my own eyes and say, Natalie, this is not you taking care of yourself right now. This is you getting distracted. And this is you making this audition about yourself and your personality and your ego having to be served, instead of coming here and telling a story and being in service of a character and something that's bigger than you. So Natalie, just drop the ego, take a deep breath, give yourself some good self-care, which is actually breathing, grounding, and presence. Those are the things I want to talk to you guys about today. And so I was able to go back out and go in the audition room, and actually from a place of being more grounded, from a place of being in my body, from a place of saying, I'm not going to compete. I'm just going to go in and do the best version of me I can do. That was self-care for me that day. And it did lead to a booking in that case, which is wonderful. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. There are many, many factors of casting, some of which are in our control, some of which are absolutely out of our control. But it's really about, what do I have to do to not abandon myself and my actor in this moment? Because the actor, I like to call it the muse. There's a muse inside of you, right? And we all know this part of ourselves, because when you were a kid, the muse was really bossy and always had amazing ideas. Like, let's make this play in grandma's basement, and my cousin's going to play this role, and my sister's going to play this role, and I'm going to organize it. Or you had all this creative spark and impulse. And that's like the muse that's like coming up to say, here's what I want to do. Here's who I want to be. Here's what I want to create. And something happens as we get sometimes a lot of technique under our belt, sometimes when we're just trying to be perfect, we're trying to please people, we're trying to get it right, that we actually shut down our impulses. We shut down the spark in us where the muse wants to come up and play. And so really self-care is saying, how can I take care of the part of myself that's artistic? How can I create a structure of my own life that supports that artistic and creative and inspired part of myself coming up and through me? Because the artist inside of me is dying to serve this story. The artist inside of me is dying to go in that audition room and just play. And the artist inside me doesn't really care if I book the job or not, or if it goes even one step further, because the artist inside me knows it gets to play today. It gets to play right now in that audition room. And that's all it cares about. There's the me and my ego, and the part of me that says, but you have to be good, but you have to be liked, but you have to book it, but you have to get more credits on your resume. And so it's always trying to navigate, like, which master am I listening to at which moment? And at the moment of an audition, we need to be listening to the artist. And we need to be able to create a space where the artist feels safe enough to do its thing and to play. And so for most of us, when we go into the audition experience, immediately our nerves, anyone have this happen, where all of a sudden your nerves start to take over your body and you feel like anything that you wanted to do isn't possible anymore. You feel like at best you're just going to try to remember your words and look kind of like a normal person. Like when the energy starts to rise, we often start to think that there's something wrong, that there's a problem to fix. But I like to talk to actors about reframing the nerves as this is the part of you that's coming up to say, this is the thing I love the most. This is the thing I'm excited about the most. This is me doing the thing that makes me most happy in the world. And so it's just excitement. It's like butterflies of a first kiss that's running through my body. And it's not something that I have to be afraid of. It's not something I have to suppress. It's actually energy that I can use for my audition. And in my own life experience, the only way that I can be mindful enough to not let the nerves take over in the audition room experience is if outside of auditioning, if outside of the room, I have really strong practices and I'm making a container that feels really safe and supported, so that when the nerves, when the anxiety, or when the trigger comes up, it's like, it's okay, we got this. Like, we got this. So it's really important. In the same way, you are not just an actor when you're on set. You're not just an actor when you're at an audition. When you're laying in your bed, when you're having a bath, when you're hanging out with your friends, you're still an actor. Like, an actor is part of who you are being. It's just part of who you are. It's your artistic expression. And so it doesn't shut off or turn on. And so a lot of people say, how do you take on that character? How do you find that character? And the truth is, it's like the character comes inside of you and it finds you. The character, jumps inside your body. It's just words on a piece of paper, and it comes inside your body. And then all of a sudden it's a fully lived, fully formed person, but that's you. And so your container needs to be strong enough to hold anything that could come up for that character. So the character could have a lot of emotion come up, the character could have whatever it wants. And so you have to say, does my life take care of me in a way where, whether I'm in an audition room or whether I'm not, I'm creating structure and habits and ritual that make it so that when I'm in those moments, because trust me, if we think that being at an audition is stressful to like really get it right, the further you get in your career, the more you're working. Being on set is even like that next level, that next level, that next level. And we just always want to consider that I want to work from a place that's not feeling anxious. I want to work from a place that feels excited. I want to work from a place of enthusiasm, because that's when you really have like the engine of joy inside of you that's driving the whole thing. Steve, thank you. This is my COVID project. See how my creativity wanted to express itself. So I made a little art wall for myself. So as we are feeling into what structure we might need, it's really important for everyone to know that it's going to be different for everybody. That someone might really like something like meditation, and someone else might really like something that's spending time in nature. Someone might like chanting or saying a mantra or saying affirmations, and someone else might say that really doesn't work for me at all. But what does your nervous system need to feel that you can breathe, you can be relaxed, even if stress is coming up for you? So without a global pandemic, without the additional kind of nerves and energy of an audition, for most of us, most human beings, we live in stress response about 70% of the time. So if your body is under stress, then usually what happens is your body's resources have to go to the place in stress to solve the problem of the stress. So if you're telling yourself in an audition room or on set that you're feeling scared, you're feeling nervous, you're feeling anxious, you're scared you're going to forget your lines, you're sort of putting your body into a heightened stress experience, and then your body has to go to try to solve that problem. And it's usually in that time when you actually do forget your lines, right? So how can you build practices for yourself that are around saying, when the stress comes up, what can I do to either breathe or get grounded or get more present? So those are kind of the 3 access points. So breathing, most of us spend a lot of our life not breathing, or we're breathing in the upper part of the lungs. And you might notice that especially in an audition experience, because that's kind of the frame we're talking about today, is that you're really breathing quite high. Some of us will even get a feeling of like flutters in the top of the chest, or even like red patches at an audition, or you start to feel a lot of the energy moving up into your jaw. So a lot of that is related to just not breathing really into that lower 30% of our lungs, which is actually where relaxation is. So if you find yourself really caught in your high breathing, you can sometimes just release your breath just like that. You can also try something just in the waiting room by just lengthening your breath. You know, if you're noticing that you're breathing an inhale for 2 and an exhale for 2, you can increase it. Inhale for 4, exhale for 4, inhale for 4, exhale for 4. And even that repetition, or even as you're breathing, saying to yourself, inhale, I'm breathing in, exhale, I'm breathing out. Even these little practices are going to draw your mind away from the problem it thinks it has to solve, and it's going to bring you right back into your physiological body. It's going to bring you right back towards more of a relaxation response. So breathing is a really big one. Now, also, our fight or flight response, for most of us, we feel it more in the front of our body. That's the posturing part of our body. That's the posturing part of our nervous system. So even think about breathing in the back of your body. Think about breathing through the back of your heart. And sometimes that can actually help relax the body even deeper too. So if you're sitting in an audition waiting room, going over your sides, you just take a couple of breaths and you try to focus the breath towards the back of your body. That can be really, really helpful too. So breathing is one way to really allow yourself to just get into that rest and digest. From rest and digest, any of those actor impulses that you have are going to have an easier time coming up and through than if you're in fight or freeze. So that would be the first kind of thing to notice of how you can build some self-care for yourself, is always with the breath. And the yogis have this wonderful saying, where the breath goes, so the mind goes. So if you notice your inner critic is really being loud or yelling at you or telling you that you're not good enough or telling you that someone else is going to be, superior or that you're going to mess it up, then really just getting back into the breath is going to take the focus away from those thoughts in the mind and into the breath, into the body again. So then the next one is to allow yourself to feel more present. And the best way to feel more present is just to actually notice what's around you. And so when you're just sitting, and especially when you first walk into the audition room and you're sitting on the chair, you can actually just mentally say, I'm sitting in a chair. There's a window over there. There's a light over there. The camera is black. The reader's shirt is blue. And then all of a sudden you're just more present in the room. And it sounds really simple, but I don't know if anyone else has ever had this experience. I certainly have, that you go in, you do your audition, you leave the audition, and you feel like, I don't even remember what just happened. Like, I don't remember what the reader looked like. It was over so fast. It was all this big blur. And like, I don't know what was happening. And so it's a really incredible thing to just be able to say, is it possible that I could be in the audition room, feel the nerves, feel whatever I'm feeling come up, feel that I want the person to like me, or feel that I want it to go well, or feel how much I want to book the job. And at the same time say, okay, I'm sitting on a navy chair. There's a window over there, and just be really, really present. As you get yourself in your breath and present, that's going to give you the third ability, which is to be grounded. And there's a really, for me, a quick and easy way to get into grounding at the audition itself, which is when you're sitting down, you imagine that your sits bones that you're sitting on are actually like little feet. And you just imagine yourself really grounded in your feet in the chair. And you can even wiggle around in the chair and just feel yourself really grounded in the chair. Once you feel yourself grounded in the chair, you just bring your heart right on top of your hips, right on top of your sits bones, and then you'll feel aligned, and that'll help you feel more grounded. If you're standing, you can just do the exact same thing, but just with the actual soles of your feet, and just sending that feeling all the way down to the soles of your feet. And it's sometimes really helpful to have that knowing that the earth is rising to meet you. Like, I'm being held up. I'm being held up in this moment. There's something rising to meet me. The floor is there. It's got me. I'm not going to fall through the floor. No matter how scared I might feel or what's coming up for me, I'm safe and I'm being held. And so even sometimes that can just relax the nervous system enough to give you a different experience. So those are the three things that you can apply in the audition room. But it's also really important to know that whatever you would like to train for your auditions to look like, it's really important to have that same training in your day-to-day life. And for many of us, we may be in the position of thinking, well, Broadway is shut down. Well, all auditions are going to be self-tapes right now. So how might this really apply? Or like, this industry that I love so much, it feels like nothing's really happening. It feels like I've worked so hard for so long and now it just feels out of reach. It feels like I don't know how to feel connected to my actor. And a really good way is, again, looking, well, how am I abandoning the artist in me by saying this isn't available, or this isn't available, or this isn't available right now? So there's an opportunity to say, even if Broadway is shut down and being on Broadway is my absolute dream, is there a way that I can still nurture and take care of my voice or take care of my body or do things every day so that when it does come back, and it will, I feel ready, I feel confident, and I feel like I have a really strong sense of self-care. I feel like I have a really strong ability that if they call and say, okay, we need you to do 8 shows a week, I have that ability because I've been taking care of myself. And you can do that with nutrition, you can do that with your sleep, and you can definitely do that with your mind. Because my experience is, for most actors, the mind is where we really get ourselves into trouble, because the mind can tell us really mean things about ourselves. So if you notice yourself in any of those patterns, if you notice yourself saying something mean to yourself, then that's an opportunity to say, oh, I just abandoned myself. Because truly, the deepest part of myself doesn't want to be mean to myself and doesn't believe that about myself. So how can I get back in my breath? How can I get grounded? How can I get present to what's around me? And then really just asking yourself, what would feel nurturing to me right now? Like, what would be nurturing to me right now? And often we don't know what would feel good and be nurturing to ourselves, because often we don't ask ourselves that question. So it's just a really, really good starting place. And I would encourage any of you guys today who want to get into a deeper relationship with self-care and you don't even know what that might look like, and you want to say, I want to carve out a little bit of time every day to figure out what that might look like, then the question I would encourage you to write down, if you're interested, is, what makes time stand still for me? What makes time stand still for me? And maybe it's like looking at my baby laugh, or maybe it's going for a walk, or maybe it's when I'm learning a script, or maybe when it's that moment right before I go on stage and I can hear the audience and it's like just right before I'm going to go out, or whatever that moment is. And so write down everything that you can think of that really makes time stand still for you. And then those things will become the clues of the kind of things that would feel really nurturing for you to do. And just asking yourself, okay, if I love and get lost in writing, then how could I spend this time devoting a little bit of time every day to writing? Even if it's not good, I don't have to judge if it's good or bad, but it would be a really nice practice of not abandoning myself to know that I feel really good when I'm writing and I show up every day to do that. So you start to develop a relationship with yourself where what you say goes, and you devote time every day to doing something that feels really good for yourself. And it's a really interesting thing to notice. Some of you are saying, yeah, a lot of criticism, difficulty receiving compliments. I think that that's like a really common thing. And I think there's something in actors and artists that we sometimes have that inability to really receive, and that's why we want to give. We want to give so much. We want to give so much. And that actually relates to the breath as well, because when we're not breathing, it's like we're not taking up space in our body. And the message we're telling our body when we're not breathing is, I don't deserve. I don't deserve to take up space. I don't deserve to be seen. And so there's something really powerful in just taking a deep breath. If I didn't deserve to be here, I would not have been called in for this audition. I do deserve to be here. If I didn't deserve to be here, I wouldn't be. I'm here. How can I every day take care of myself in a way that's saying, what do I need? What would be nourishing for me? And really like practicing that receiving, because all of us, if we look at it from more of a psychology perspective, we all come from various wounds, and we've picked up various things along the way from conditioning. And it always relates, well, I won't say always, but it typically relates to one of three things. We either feel like there's something wrong with us, we're defective, we feel like we're not worthy, or we feel like we're unlovable. And that's just how many, many humans identify themselves. We identify ourselves as one of those beliefs. And then we end up living our life trying to kind of overcompensate from that belief. And it's a really interesting thing to notice, because if we notice the part inside of ourselves that doesn't feel worthy, as Jade said, then what can become really powerful is to say, okay, if I feel not worthy, how could I give myself some love and some care that could maybe help me to know my own worthiness? And it might start super, super small. But it's a really interesting thing to say, if I'm going to walk into an audition, and let's say the average audition, depending on the size of the role, is 3 minutes to 7 minutes. If I'm going to walk into an audition room and want to take up the space of 3 minutes or 7 minutes in someone's day, but I don't feel worthy even to spend time with myself, it's going to be really hard for me to feel worthy of the casting director's time. It's going to be really hard for me to feel worthy of that time on set as well. So that, Jade, thank you for saying that. It's really brave. That becomes really the work. And for all of us, looking at the place that might feel unlovable, that might feel defective, or that might feel unworthy, self-care is actually about looking at that part and giving love to that part, because we actually will hinder ourselves and sabotage ourselves and not live into the career that we could if we let that unconscious false belief, because Jade, of course you're worthy, but if we let that false belief run the show, then of course what we can create is going to be hindered by that. So that was my little share for you all on some little ideas around self-care. If you have any questions, I'm very happy to answer them for you. I think you can go ahead and type them in the chat, or maybe someone from backstage has them if they've been collecting them. You're welcome to type them. Hello, Diane. Thank you all for tuning in. So lovely. Jonathan from Chile, that's awesome. So good. And again, if you missed it, a really good question to start with is, what makes life stand still for me? Live Free Warrior, a day on set routine, absolutely. So a day on set routine totally has to start with self-care, because it has to start with doing what you need to do to take care of yourself even before you arrive on set, because you don't want to arrive on set feeling anxious and needing someone to make you feel better, because all the people on set have their own jobs to do, and making you feel better certainly is not one of them. So what I like to do is I like to pack a little, I kind of got the idea from, women when they're about to go and have babies at the hospital, when they're going into labor. And they packed like a bag to take with them to the hospital with like all the essentials. So I think that actors really should do that on set. And then that can be like a really helpful thing. And so you can have in your little bag, you always want to have a pen in case they don't have one on set. You want to bring, a book or something to do in case you're waiting a long time on set. You want to have some snacks with you. You want to have some water bottles, like just bringing the things, packing the things that would make you almost feel like if you were going to summer camp, like the things that you would want to have with you to make you feel really nourished and close to home. I always think that's a great idea, especially for if you know that you've done your costume fitting and the shoes that you're going to be wearing maybe are new or they're not comfortable. They're always new. Then you can also bring like a little pair of slippers or a little pair of flip-flops or something with you, so that if you have to walk from, say, your trailer to a location and it's several blocks and you don't want to have hurt feet, then you can bring a side pair of shoes that you can switch into. You can bring a little blanket for your trailer. Sometimes that feels really nourishing if you're, if they have the air conditioning blasting. Yeah, Evelyn, a sweater, exactly. It can stay real. It can get really cold in those little trailers, which is better than it being too hot, obviously. But just bringing those things that are really going to help you feel nurtured, and know that every single person who's on set wants you to be there. Like, you've been chosen, you've been picked, they're excited for you to be there. So you don't have to go in feeling like, I don't know if I'm wanted. It's kind of like you got invited for dinner and you're just showing up on time for your dinner. So show up on time, if not early. Early is always better. And having like your little bag of supplies with you to make you feel comfortable, that's a really good way to have some self-care around being on set. This is a great question, Sindro. How do I stay confident with my acting with toxic family members? It's a really, really great question. Okay, so everyone in life is going through their own hidden battle. And some people's battles are more on the surface and some are much more hidden. But every single person, including every member of our family, is going through their own unlovability, unworthiness, or defectiveness. So the members of the family that might be being toxic, there's many of these that I've heard before. You can't make money doing what you love. Yeah, you can be an actor for a little while, but then you're going to go get a real job, right? What are the other ones that family members say? It's like, it's just a dream. Like, it's silly, it's selfish, it's, you should do something more productive with your time. There's many, many things that I'm sure that we've all heard. And so there's just the knowing that, and this is a really good mantra, I am the authority of what works best for my life. And it's actually totally okay for someone else to not understand that. And it doesn't make it less true for you if your family members don't understand your passion or don't understand what you're about or don't understand what you do. It's not a mark on you if they don't see you in your authentic truth. It has nothing to do with you, and it has everything to do with the part inside of them that either feels unworthy, unlovable, or defective. And in many of the actors that I've spoken to who have this kind of family dynamic, it's often about the family feels scared. I was actually walking on the street last night in New York, and I heard a girl talking to her friend saying, yeah, my mom was just saying, well, it's time to get a real job. Broadway's closed, you know? And so there's this feeling that even people who sometimes people don't know they're being toxic because they think they're being well-meaning and trying to protect you. And so it becomes a conversation around setting a boundary and saying, hey, I just want you to know, I totally get how you feel about this. Like, you've made it really clear how you feel about this. And I just happen to feel really differently about this. So I'm requesting that we don't have conversations around this if it can't feel nurturing and supportive. Now, will they honor that? Will they say yes to that? Will they do that? Maybe, and maybe not. And then you just keep coming back to the boundary. Hey, remember when I set this boundary around these kinds of conversations? So, you know, I'm going to have to leave the conversation because the boundary is being crossed. And it's actually really interesting because we set a boundary not to keep anyone else out or to be judgmental of anyone. You set a boundary because the boundary is the line where if we go over this line, I will abandon myself. And because my self-care is about me learning how to not abandon myself, I'm setting this boundary not because you're bad, not because you're wrong. I'm setting this boundary so I can take care of myself. And it's a really awesome, what I would call A-list training as well, even though it's really, really painful. But I don't know any A-list celebrity who we could name on the planet who we could say everybody likes them and no one's ever mean to them and no one's ever toxic with them or no one ever, you know, tells them they should do something else. You could be at the height of your career and do an incredible role that you're so proud of and have someone put it on Rotten Tomatoes and say it was horrible and it was the worst thing they ever watched. So some of it you can actually say, thank you, family, for helping me get to the point where I'm thickening my skin. I'm teaching myself about my own boundaries and my own authority. I'm teaching myself that I'm allowed to love what I want to love, even if people don't agree with me. You know, it's the same conversation as saying people are allowed to love who they love and other people don't get to say anything about that. And so as we get really strong in our self-care, as we get really strong in learning how to not abandon ourselves, we'll know that toxic people is just part of what comes along as you get more and more visible, but you'll be strong enough and able to hold it and to handle it. And hopefully people will come with us along the way. And by us leading through example, they'll shift. That's always the hope. Antoinette, thank you. It's been tough for me to turn my negative criticism into positive thinking. Yeah, I would say thank you for sharing that, Antoinette. That's a vulnerable thing to share. And I think that it's a really common thing. I'm sure many people watching and listening have a similar experience. The first part is the really sucky part, which is you got to get really into listening to what that negativity is telling you. Because if you really start listening to it, and I've actually talked to actors before and given them this as like a homework assignment, like for 1 week, I want you to have a little notebook and keep your notebook with you everywhere you go, in your knapsack and by the bedside table and in the car or in the subway. Have your little notebook with you. And every time you notice any negative criticism coming up, I want you to write down what it says. So I actually, I've done this exercise for myself. This is totally for a beginner. Yeah. I've totally done this for myself where it's like after one day I've filled like 13 pages because the negativity is so much, right? So it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or if you're a pro, that negative inner critic, that inner voice is really loud. So the first step is to write down everything it says. Now, this is the part that doesn't feel good because you first have to get really present to how negative that voice is and how mean it is to you before we can change it. Thanks, Diane. So the first thing is write everything down. And then once you've written everything down, let's say you do this practice for a week, or let's say you do it for 72 hours, then you're going to look back over your notebook and you're going to say, what are the themes? Because there's definitely themes. So maybe, I'm just going to give an example. Maybe there's a woman named Sally, and she's been writing down all the things her negative critic's been saying to her. And maybe the common themes she noticed is the inner critic likes to tell her how her body isn't enough, and how she's too old, and how she's stupid. Maybe the inner critic comes up with lots of different ways to say it, but those are the things that come up over and over. Those are the themes. So then you're going to circle those ones and say, okay, those are really the places where my inner critic wants to attack me. And then the only thing you got to do, Antoinette, just as a beginner, is when it comes up, you don't have to believe it. Like you can just say, that's an opinion. Thank you for sharing. And so it's noticing what the themes are. And then when those themes come up, say, what could I replace this with that would feel more healthy? What could I replace this with that would feel different? Now, if your inner critic is saying, I hate my body, then telling yourself, I love my body, you're not going to believe that. No one's going to believe that. You know what I mean? It's too far of a jump. So if you're in that mode of feeling like I hate my body, then a gentler jump could be, well, there's things about my body that aren't so bad. That could be a gentler jump. And so even just going from that really extreme negative place to like, it's not so bad, or this part of my body's good, or my feet are really awesome, or my legs take me everywhere I want to go, or whatever the thing is, you can just start to make those small little jumps. Over time, those small jumps will lead to more awareness. It'll lead to more gentle communication. But talk about self-care. It is not caring to yourself to let yourself beat yourself up all day long. That is not caring to yourself. And I'm sure, Antoinette, and anyone else who has that negative voice inside of your head, I'm sure you would never let yourself talk to your kids or your partner or your friends that way. You would never, ever, ever, the things that you say to yourself, you would never let yourself say to anybody else. So we have to say, oh, somewhere along the line, that kind of beating myself up got normalized for me. And so I have to take actions by being more mindful when I feel that happening to say, that doesn't feel good. No, if I wouldn't, treat a puppy that way, I'm not treating myself that way. And so that's how we just start to rewire that a little bit at a time. Great. Any other questions? Anything that I missed that anyone's dying to hear about? Just scanning here. Oh, Marcia, that's a really interesting thing. I don't know if I'm wanted even after I've auditioned and even after I've booked the role. It's amazing. We're very, very hard on ourselves. And thoughts that aren't exactly negative. I think that, Emma, there's just a question of, is this thought nourishing to me? Does this thought move me forward? Or does this thought feel like a sabotage or something that holds me back? Yeah, I don't have enough experience yet. Exactly. So that kind of thought can be negative if you attach therefore, like if you attach to the end of that sentence, I don't have enough experience yet, therefore I'm not a good actor, or therefore I'm not going to get hired, or therefore I'm not going to get booked. If you attach it to that, it becomes negative. If you attach, I don't have enough experience yet, therefore I have a total beginner's mind, I'm hungry, I'm open, and I'm ready to learn, then it becomes a total positive thing. So it just kind of depends on what you attach to it. One of my favorite things that yoga talks about, and I'm so grateful for the philosophies of yoga and all of the teachers before me, the teachers that taught me and the teachers that taught them, and that incredible lineage. But what yoga talks about is that we suffer when we link together two things that are not meant to be linked together. And we all know this from, like, if you've ever had that relationship that was not meant to be linked with you and you were linked to it and it caused you suffering. So whatever you link that thought to is going to create it to be a positive or a negative. And then that's where you get some self-care. Yeah, finish the sentence. Exactly. Valentine, yes. Keeping your personal values in spite of pressures. Yeah, that's why not self-abandoning is really the most important mindset tool for an actor, because there are many circumstances where, you know, you might be asked to do something that you don't feel comfortable doing, or you might be asked to say something you don't feel comfortable saying, and you have the authority and the right within your body, within your artist, within your person, to take care of yourself at all costs and to do only what feels good to you. And there's a scarcity mindset in thinking that if I don't do this thing that this person wants, then it might negatively impact my acting career. You're sort of telling yourself, like, if I don't do everything perfect, I'm never going to make it as an actor. And that in and of itself is showing you that you actually don't trust your talent. Because if you really trust your talent, if you really trust that you have a desire to do this thing, you're here doing this thing, you love doing this thing, then you have the capacity to say, no, I don't want to do that job, but oh, this job feels really good to me, knowing that you're not hindering yourself in any way. You're just doing what your own inner compass is telling you is the right thing for you. So if you notice yourself feeling like I have to compromise myself in order to make it, then know that that's a mindset issue, because never, ever should you ever compromise yourself for anything, because your talent and who you came to be is much more important than any of that. Someone was asking about the daily self-care routine, Martha. So especially during COVID, the daily self-care routine has shifted, but I've really tried to get out in nature as much as possible to just feel grounded, to feel really connected to the earth. I'm also a really big fan of celery juice. You know, this isn't like I don't make money off of celery juice or anything. I'm just sharing with you guys. There is a wonderful, like, if you look up the benefits of celery juice, there are incredible, wonderful benefits for the body, for the mind, for the heart. It's absolutely incredible. So if you're not on having celery juice every day, it's a wonderful thing. I'm also a fan of the Ayurvedic yoga practice of oil pulling, which is gargling with oil, and it pulls toxins out of your mouth. If you want more information about that, you can Google oil pulling. But it's a wonderful practice to get bacteria and toxins out of your mouth, so that then you're not then swallowing those toxins, so you're keeping yourself healthy. I'm a huge advocate for getting really good sleep, and also making sure that you have blackout times from your cell phone. So, you know, make sure a few hours before bed, you're not just sitting on your cell phone. Make sure when you first wake up in the morning, you're not going immediately to your cell phone. That for me is something that feels really nurturing. And you'll find out as you go, you'll find out what practices feel really, really nurturing to you. And always by going to that question, what makes time stand still for me? What would feel really nurturing for me? So my teeth, yeah, and oil pulling does make your teeth whiter. So it's like a wonderful, cheap and cheerful way to have white, wonderful teeth. It's awesome. So I wanted to give you guys a little gift. For anyone who is like, I have time during this pandemic and I want to make more room for self-care. I want to make more room for my dreams. I want to make more room for the things that I want to create. So I have a gift for you. So let me see if I can type it here. I'm going to give you a code, Create Your Life, with all caps. Hopefully you can see that. Create, C-R-E-A-T-E, Your Life. If you put that code, if you go over to my website, which is the Create, it's hard to type and talk at the same time, thecreateseries.com. Thecreateseries.com. If you go over to my website, and you click on the Create book, and you go to purchase the book, but you put in Create Your Life, all caps, Create Your Life. If you put that into when you go to check out and buy the book, it'll give you a 100% discount coupon, which means the book is totally free. So it's called Let's Play, the Create Playbook, and it's about how you take an inspiration and idea and you manifest it all of the way into a dream. And it gives you tons of self-care practices. It gives you tons of meditation ideas. It's just a really fun book. It's myself and my Tony-nominated director, best friend, Kristin Hanggi, who's also super wonderful if you don't know about her. You can come over to our Facebook page. We have a Create Facebook page, the Create community, and we're always posting quotes and things like that there. So anyway, if you go to thecreateseries.com, click on the Create book, put in that discount code, it'll give you 100% off, totally free. And that's a way that you can take some of the things that we talked about today and take it a little bit deeper. So I hope that's helpful for you guys. I hope that's of service. I hope that you really do prioritize taking care of yourself. We have never been here before, in our lifetime. I believe with full heart that the artists are healers and the actors are the healers. And I know that the world is going to need us more than ever in the upcoming months and years. And I know that the kind of television, the kind of films, the kind of things that are going to come out of the industry are going to be really powerful, and we all get to be a part of that. So even if in the short term you feel disconnected, please don't lose your dream, don't lose your hope. Know that there is a light at the end of this tunnel, and it very well might actually be you. So continue to build and grow your own light in the meantime, so you can be part of the solution of where we want to see this industry go. And thank you so much for tuning in. It was really wonderful to have you all. Thank you. Please feel free, as I said, to join our Facebook page or come on over and get your free gift. And take care of yourself. Really, really important. Have some deep breaths today.